What up, y'all? Back with another video, and the reason why I'm doing this special content of one of my favorite wrestlers from the 1990s all the way up to now. Attitude Era, New Generation Era, Ruthless Aggression Era, PG Era, Reality Era, and he defined all of them. And y'all know I'm talking about the Phenom, the Dead Man, the Undertaker. The reason why I'm doing this video is because I wanted to talk to y'all about my experience with the Dead Man and some of my favorite matches and storylines out of this guy that made our childhood great, memorable, and legendary of all time. Something that we can cherish throughout the years to come. Something that we can admire about the character that we grew up in love right now. And as the person who brought the character to life, Mark Holloway, you watching this, shout out to you. The first memory I have with The Undertaker is when he debuted at Survivor Series in 1990. Now, I wasn't born in that year. I was born in 1981. But I'm talking about what I see on YouTube, looking at the incredible debut of the guy. Now look, you're probably wondering why couldn't I just wait until November 27th to make a video about him. Well, I wanted to do this now because sometimes I'm impatient when it comes to making content on YouTube, because since time went back, I have to get this out now. So yeah, so getting back to what I was saying about his debut at Survivor Series 1990. This cat right here is what really made me a fan of him even more, because he was one guy that really made an impact on Ted DiBiase's team, eliminating like not one, not two, but 3 people. I think he eliminated 4. I'm not sure, but I think the biggest thing I learned about the Dead Man is that he takes no BS from anybody. He's a zombie character. He's from Death Valley, California, but in real life his actor is actually from Houston, Texas. That's probably why you're having a hard time hearing his so-called California accent, but you hear his Texas accent because he's from the country. So nothing wrong with that. And that was his thing. He's been on top. Now, the rivalries he had in his career, some of my favorite rivalries from top to bottom. Now, I do want to talk about the rivalry with Mankind, because that is literally one of my favorite rivalries out of The Undertaker. Right after WrestleMania 12, when Mankind debuted in 1986, the day after WrestleMania, made a huge impact. Mandible claw on people's throats, making them puke and vomit, spit up and everything. And that's kind of what happened to The Undertaker. And still he was about to go for the win. Mankind ends up coming out, attacking The Undertaker, using the mandible claw on The Undertaker's throat, making him puke up chunks. And I think that's what the rivalry started. Then leading on to the pay-per-view of In Your House, when 2 of them got really physical, and that alone is what made Undertaker famous even more, because of the physical altercation with Mankind. Because when 2 of them together in the ring, physical altercations and physical actions will happen, as far as like aggressions, bloody nose and bloody foreheads. It's like those 2 can throw down in the ring and outside of the ring. But it wasn't too long ago, the match that really made his character more memorable was the 1996 SummerSlam Boiler Room Brawl. That match alone is what capitalizes Undertaker's career and character throughout the years to come. Those 2 really threw down in the Boiler Room Brawl, all the way up to the ring. And who can forget the moment when Paul Bearer betrayed The Undertaker? It was one of those highlights that made it more memorable and made it a classic, a cult classic in the late 90s. And right after that, next night on Raw, Jim Ross interviews Mankind on Paul Bearer, rest in peace to Paul Bearer, about the Undertaker's situation. Dead Man comes out, surprising everybody that he's alive and well, which leading on to one of their famous matches in the late 90s, which is the Buried Alive match at Survivor Series. That match alone really showcases the Undertaker of who he is as a character, that he can get really physical leading up to the match in Survivor Series, which is good. And at In Your House Revenge of the Taker the following year. And now the Hell in a Cell match is what made it more memorable for the Undertaker even more with Mankind. That match is still everyone's top match to this day. Like, you cannot beat the 1998 Hell in a Cell match with Undertaker and Mankind. Even Mark Calloway said it himself. Now, other rivalries that I love about the Undertaker, it involves the storyline to the beginning of the Ministry of Darkness era. From late 1998, it was right after the Judgment Day pay-per-view where Undertaker created the Ministry of Darkness. And we begin to see a serious transition to even a darker version of The Undertaker. Promises to take over the WWF and the World Wrestling Federation, to even take over Mr. McMahon's mind, body, and soul. In the early stages of the Ministry of Darkness era is what made his character really shine. It's kind of like that role of Jesus Christ, but using in a dark tone, in the dark side at the same time. But in reality, Mark Calloway is a Christian. He loves God more than anything, but what you see on TV is not real. I know sometimes it'll be a whole lot of Christian people having problems with it. I mean, it's part of the TV show, and it's part of his character, which I love the most. And really ruined it for me was the corporate ministry gimmick, and I think that's what really ruined it. Because with Shane McMahon by his side, it just made Undertaker the weakest link. Yeah, he may be the strongest wrestler, but he was the weakest one out of everybody, and it was not a good look. Even Mark Calloway said it himself that he did not enjoy the corporate ministry. He was better off alone by himself with his minions. But that didn't stop him from giving us some moments out of his career. The rivalry with Stone Cold Steve Austin and Fully Loaded, the first blood match, can't forget about that. And when JR actually sold everything, he actually sold this match. And I still don't like the fact that he teamed up with the Big Show, the Unholy Alliance. I wasn't really a fan of that. But Undertaker was going through a growing area situation, which caused him to take some time off TV. The day he left the WWF, I think it was around October or November of 1999. But it was giving us a tease of his biker gimmick because of his talking and the way he was acting, which we're going to get to that in the future. Now, the biker gimmick of The Undertaker in 2000, when he came back after Judgment Day, boy oh boy, he had one of the best pops I've ever heard out of a returned legend. But it was the first time that fans got to see The Undertaker be himself for the first time in the character of how he is in real life, was able to transition into his character in the WWF in 2000. But he did have some interesting storylines. But it wasn't until 2001 he had a rivalry with Triple H during one of the best pay-per-views of all time, WrestleMania 17. It's still one of the best pay-per-views of all time. And their match alone in that pay-per-view, legend. just legend. You cannot go any wrong about it. It has some interesting storylines with the two-man power trip between Triple H and Austin, Undertaker and Kane, tag titles, tag match storylines. And what made it more memorable to me was the storyline with DDP stalking The Undertaker's real first wife, Sarah. The Undertaker was married to Sarah at one point. I think they had like 1 or 2 kids together before he married Mr Mcmahon. But the DDP storyline, stalking The Undertaker's wife, it was crazy. Then he had a rivalry with Stone Cold Steve Austin about Undertaker's wife was being in a car accident. The Cincinnati PD said that there was no accident. So Stone Cold was the one that staged the whole car accident being fake, that there was no accident. So Austin pretty much masterminded a conspiracy. So they had a match at a pay-per-view, and JR once again sold every match. And he had some pretty good storylines with Brock Lesnar in 2002. But the only thing I did not like about that storyline was this fake mistress that had an affair with The Undertaker. Even though he did cheat in real life, but they did not need to put that in the storyline. And I thought that was really uncomfortable. And the actress that played the mistress, I wonder what happened to her though. She's probably doing something different with her life. But her role in the WWE, it was a complete turnoff, and I did not like that one bit. But the Hell in a Cell match, however, when Undertaker was dealing with the broken hand, he fought with the cast. And even when without the cast, Undertaker fought with his heart. He fought with his knowledge. But at the end, Brock Lesnar gained the upper hand and ended up winning the match. But I still enjoyed that match overall. And one way to put it, ending of their feud, which they did on SmackDown, to show respect to one another. And yeah. But I think around 2003, Undertaker had a rivalry with Mr McMahon. And this time it was personal. Mr McMahon threatened to have Undertaker's wife raped and threatened to have his kids kidnapped. I think this was at the time when he was still married to Sarah. Yeah, I think he was still married to her at the time. But their match in Survivor Series alone, you cannot go wrong about the match. And I think it was pretty much a character change for The Undertaker. He was starting to sound like the dead man version of himself, the way he was talking. And it was right after Kane buried The Undertaker at Survivor Series, knowing full well that Kane did not do it, or Mr. McMahon won the match. He won by interference. But even though, how can I forget that it was a no DQ match or a very live match, and Mr. McMahon was bleeding by a pulp, all over the announce table, all over the arena, due to a vicious right hand from The Undertaker. And yeah, around 2004, he came back as the Dead Man WrestleMania 20, which was documented. Ever since then, he's been having some really interesting rivalries. But one of my favorite rivalries from The Undertaker was him and Randy Orton in 2005. Started at WrestleMania 21, SummerSlam, SmackDown, and leading up to the Hell in a Cell match at, I think, Armageddon. Yeah, I think that was in Armageddon. Undertaker, he's like one of the biggest legends in the WWE history. There's so many good memories out of this guy that I can name of, but one of my absolute favorite rivalries from The Undertaker is when him and Shawn Michaels in WrestleMania 25. Because the streak was really important. And Shawn Michaels was coming off as like a heel and babyface at the same time. And their match at WrestleMania 25 can't go no wrong. Up and down, back and forth. Undertaker was known for that vicious choke slam, which looked so good. And the Shawn Michaels career ending at WrestleMania 26. Two of their best WrestleMania matches. And how can I go wrong with the 2015 Undertaker? 2015 Undertaker, he was very, very active when he returned to WrestleMania 31. And the reason why I'm not going to include WrestleMania 30 is because that was the weaker Undertaker that we do not want to remember. We want to remember the Undertaker from being the toughest and the baddest wrestler of all time. But I will say this, the 2015 Undertaker was a lot better than his previous Undertakers because he was still active, he was still going on with the rivalry with Brock Lesnar, the Wyatt family. 2015 Undertaker was the best. Just saying. And my last, and but not least, my favorite match, two of them from 2019 to 2020. This match, tag team match with Roman Reigns, Shane McMahon, Drew McIntyre. That 2019 Extreme Rules match was a lot better than his previous matches. He was active, he was healthy, he looked good, he looked great. He looked like Undertaker. The way he was wrestling, the way he was fighting. And it was pretty much documented that, his last ride documentary that he was telling Vince that he can't go anymore, he can't do like he used to. Like he wants to retire. He was getting older, he keeps getting injured, multiple surgeries throughout the years. Like, how much more can your body take? His last match, however, was with AJ Styles and was a lot better. The cinematic match was a lot better. It was cool, it was great. I had a good time watching it. Go check out my reaction, it's up there. And he came back as the biker gimmick. And it pretty much the perfect match, the perfect way to retire on your own term, and that's the way you know what? This is exactly how you're supposed to go out on your last match in the WWE, on your retirement match. So a lot of people had issues with his retirement speech last November in Survivor Series, and I thought it was fine. I thought it was good. The holographic image of Paul Bearer showing up, that really had me crying though. No cap, y'all. Like, it really had me crying just seeing his eyes roll back, the holographic image of Paul Bearer, and I thought it was a perfect send-off, to me at least. But they're gonna probably have him do a better send-off as Survivor Series this year, or probably have him in the Hall of Fame next year. But it's gonna be in Houston, Texas, and I think what better way to be inducted into the Hall of Fame right in your hometown of Houston, Texas. So yeah, those are my favorite memories and storylines and rivalries of The Undertaker. Let me know what are your favorite moments of The Undertaker in the comments down below. And yeah, y'all take it easy.